Hello, everybody, and welcome to TRT World. This is the News Hour live from Istanbul with me, Maria Ramos. Fantastic to have your company. Now, coming up in the next 60 minutes, French researchers are planning to give nicotine patches to coronavirus patients as a trial treatment. Now, this after a study suggests that smokers may be at a lower risk of contracting the virus. But before you take it as an excuse to light up, listen to what the experts have to say, and we'll be speaking to a doctor on this show. Also on the programme, we'll be looking at how millions of Muslims around the world are observing Ramadan under lockdown this year. And our health correspondent will join us with tips on how to stay healthy and fit during this holy month. Plus, working from home has become the new normal, even for us here at the TRT World Newsroom. And I'll be joined by 4 of my fantastic colleagues spread across 3 continents, and we'll be speaking to them later on the show about their experience of working remotely, and that is coming up later on the programme. But first, all that to come, the US President Donald Trump has caused quite a stir in the medical community. I'm sure you haven't missed that headline. He's suggested further research into using ultraviolet light and disinfectants such as bleach to treat patients with the coronavirus. Now, Trump's suggestions follow a presentation of research by the US government. It showed that exposure to sunlight and heat seemed to make the coronavirus weaken more quickly. The US president made the statements in the presence of the White House coronavirus response coordinator, Deborah Birx. Trump was also quick to reiterate that he was merely making suggestions.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that, so that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Meanwhile, Renkit Brenkesser, that's the British owner of Dettol and Lysol, says it's been overwhelmed with queries over the possible internal use of disinfectants to treat coronavirus. The company has issued a statement saying the following: under no circumstance should our disinfectant products be administered into the human body. It emphasizes all of its products should only be used as intended and according to usage guidelines. The company added it has a responsibility to provide consumers with access to accurate, up-to-date information as advised by leading public health experts. Now, for more on this, TRT World's Lionel Donovan joins us from Silver Spring in Maryland. Fantastic to have you on the show. What's been the reaction in the US to this?
Well, the reaction has basically been many people, both inside and outside the medical community, being baffled by Trump's comments. When they first came out, many people took to social media to express their confusion on where Trump got this idea from that the virus could be used for treating infections, that disinfectants could be used inside the body to treat infections. And as you were saying earlier, the makers of Lysol have come out saying that under no circumstances should disinfectants be used outside of their recommended usage, and that they should not under any circumstances be injected or taken inside the body. In fact, that is very poisonous. And many people have also come out to say that this type of suggestions that Trump has said is actually very dangerous. And a lot of people are looking towards the president in order to get an idea of what to do during this virus. And as you can imagine, this is a very scary time for a lot of people. And many people around the country are trying to find ways to basically protect themselves from this virus, which could lead many people to make decisions that they wouldn't normally make. So many people, like I said, were very baffled by Trump's comments and are actually also very worried that his comments could actually have a lot of harm as time goes on.
And how do such comments reflect on the president's image and popularity right now?
Well, as I was saying earlier, this is a very dangerous time in the United States, and many people around the country are desperate and worried about how they can protect themselves against the coronavirus. So when Trump says comments like these, many people, many experts and public health officials are concerned that this could actually have more harm. And many people are also saying that because this isn't the first time that Trump has made comments not along these lines, that many people are saying that these kinds of briefings, when Trump makes these comments like this, actually harm the larger public, because the comments that he are making isn't grounded in science and isn't backed by medical professionals and health experts. And so some people are actually wondering whether or not these briefings should be publicized or televised as much as they are, if they are going to actually exacerbate the harm that this virus is causing by people around the country.
Lionel Donovan, thank you so much for that. Now, let's stay with the subject. And Professor Sian Griffiths is an emeritus professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and also the founding director of its Centre for Global Health. And in 2003, Professor Griffiths co-chaired the Hong Kong government's expert committee into the SARS epidemic. And she joins us now from Oxford in the UK. Thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, your reactions to President Trump's comments.
I concur with everything Lionel Donovan was just saying. These comments are very dangerous in that they can be misinterpreted, they can be half-heard. People might think that they should go and use disinfectant and bleach, and this is just dangerous. So if the president's going to have musings of this sort, it's better that they're done in private and that he sticks to the science in these sort of briefings, because this is a new disease. It is a scary disease, and people are all around the world are looking for ways in which they can stay safe and protect their loved ones. And frankly, the idea that we might use disinfectant in this way is dangerous.
And what needs to be done to stop any harm? For example, we just heard two top household brands in the UK and the US, Dettol and Lysol, issue a statement that we just read out, saying that in no circumstances can their cleaning products be used to treat coronavirus. Do we need to hear more like this, or how do you stop that from reaching people that could listen to the president?
We need people. Well, I mean, I don't know whether the president might say something himself, but that's obviously up to him. But the brands need to make sure that they amplify this warning, because these are global brands, and you know, if you half hear something, you may think, oh, that's what he said. And that's the danger. So we really need to re-emphasize the warning that one must not use bleach disinfectant internally. One must use the measures that are advised by science, which is around social distancing, which is around hygiene. Yes, you can use bleach to wash down surfaces, but you don't use it on your body or in your body.
And what's your advice to our viewers when they hear about new trials, new vaccines, and maybe other, bogus miracle remedies that are out there? We heard, for example, the president of Madagascar touting a herbal remedy this week.
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that the World Health Organization is the safest place to look, because it is collating and collecting all the research. And in every country, we have research organizations that are collecting the research and will give you a health warning if it hasn't been peer reviewed. So research should be peer reviewed, published in good journals. And there's nothing wrong with new science coming and new ideas being discussed. What the problem is if people just half hear truths or half report studies, or studies are not done right, then the science can be dangerous. So you need to go to a respectable point source, either in the country or within the WHO, to find the most up-to-date. And science is going to change through this epidemic. We are all going to see stories emerging, ideas changing, ideas developing. That's fine, but we need to make sure we go to a reputable source.
Absolutely. Professor Sian Griffiths, thanks so much for speaking to us on the NewsHour on TRT World. Thank you. Now, hopes the antiviral drug remdesivir could treat COVID-19 have been dashed after it failed a clinical trial. According to draft documents published by the World Health Organization, patients taking the drug did not improve. It also did not reduce the amount of the virus found in their bloodstreams. The drug's manufacturer, Gilead, is disputing these results, actually. The WHO says the documents, which have since been deleted, were published by mistake. Now, medical researchers in France have found that a substance in nicotine could prevent people from contracting COVID-19. The study, carried out in a hospital in Paris, reveals smokers may be less susceptible to the virus. A full clinical trial using nicotine patches on non-smokers is still under approval, but scientists say it could be a major breakthrough. However, it's not all good news, though. The investigation suggests that a smoker has less chance of surviving infection than a non-smoker because of the damage already done to their lungs. Now, for more on this, Dr. Taner Demirer is a professor at Ankara University School of Medicine, and he joins us now for more on this. First of all, your reaction to this headline, because it is quite shocking and could be misunderstood. What is the science behind this?
Yes, I agree with you. It's quite shocking. And I have to say that smoking kills 8 million people every year in the world. And also smoking is the #1 cause of the lung cancer. So smoking is damaging the alveoli cell line in smokers. So these people have underlying chronic lung disease like COPD. And also most of the smokers have poor pulmonary function. So most of the observations which were done in China, North America and Europe showed that smokers are having really bad cytokine storm in the intensive care unit and with COVID disease. And the death rates of the smokers in the ICU are 13 to 14 times higher than non-smokers. So this is very important observation. Therefore, I am very cautious about the Chinese and French observation saying that patients who are admitted to hospital and ICU 4 to 5% compared to people who are released to home.
Okay.
The rate is 25 to 30%. So this is a very tricky issue. So I am very cautious about this French study. There are a couple of problems with this study. I have to say, #1 is cigarette contains not only nicotine, but also contains more than 22 harmful chemicals. The #1 confounding variable. #2 is the age adjustment is really important. You are just comparing here people who are admitted to hospital in the Europe. In fact, the median age of those people are 62. And the people are released to home, the median age is just 30 to
Dr.
50
Taner,
years old. So you cannot compare.
I want to
apples and
interrupt, and just for the sake of clarity, because there could be a lot of confusion with this study and this headline, what are the risks of smoking, given that the coronavirus attacks the lungs?
Well, the most important thing is here, most of the smokers are having chronic lung disease, underlying lung disease, especially chronic smokers. We are calling chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is COPD. And most of them have poor pulmonary functions. And therefore, we know that COVID-19 is causing really bad cytokine storm and lung damages in patients who are smokers. So the death rate is going up in patients who are smokers, especially chronic smokers. Therefore, smoking is a really big risk factor, and this kind of suggestions and studies may mislead people. For me, it's quite shocking. I think somehow World Health Organization has to interfere with this kind of studies because these studies are problematic and you cannot get any positive results. And I have to say that this kind of study has to be done people who are smokers and more than 60 years old who are admitted to ICU. So you have to make comparison, smokers versus non-smokers, but more than 60 years old.
Okay.
But you cannot compare different age groups. So this is not acceptable in the epidemiology and statistical wise.
All right, Dr. Taner Demirer, really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much. Still to come on this News Hour here on TRT World, why social distancing is impossible in some parts of Southeast Asia. Do stay with us.
want to understand our world, the news is important. But to really get it, you've got to get personal. Here on The Nexus, we look behind the big events, the big headlines, with the people who are in the story. What drives them? What makes them tick?
The bill is set.
Sometimes serious, sometimes fun. Always human and never compromising on the facts. Analysis that will get you thinking. Nexus on TRT World.
Hello and welcome back to the News Hour on TRT World. Now, the South African government says it will allow a partial reopening of the economy from May the 1st. Now, the country has been under lockdown for nearly a month. This has left many people without income and short of supplies. Authorities say limited domestic travel will be allowed, but the country's borders remain closed. Some industries will also be able to resume operations. Ensepeng Motema is in Johannesburg with more.
Now, which sectors are going to reopen, we don't know. The relevant government ministers are going to let us know that. But the president has said that the companies that are going to open, they need to open very slowly. They shouldn't have all the workforce coming back to work at the same time, that they should encourage people to work from home where possible, and that they can also look at the measures and go back to government to give their own suggestions before the measures are signed into law. Now, the most worrying part for a lot of people is that travel between regions still won't be allowed when we get to level 4 on the 1st of May. A lot of people now, before the lockdown, decided that they were going to leave the big cities, the economic hubs, and go to the small towns, their villages at home, to be with family where they knew that at least they're going to have something to eat, because it's harvest season and people do a lot of agricultural farming rather than being stuck in the big city and starve. Now, what is going to happen to those people? Are they going to come to regret the decision they've made of going to those small towns and villages? To not starve, now that they won't be able to travel back to the economic hub where they could at least go back to work.
Now, South and East Asia have become some of the most densely populated cities on Earth, with tens of thousands of people per square kilometre. And as Sena Sailan reports, that kind of overcrowding makes social distancing practically impossible.
Asia's megacities bring people shoulder to shoulder on their busy public transport and streets. To reduce coronavirus infections, residents are being told to stay about 2 meters away from one another. But in Dhaka's shanty towns, the average home is 11 square meters, and people who live there say it's impossible.
This is a densely populated area. Almost 400,000 people live here. It's impossible to keep people 15 centimeters apart from one another in such a small place, let alone maintain 1 meter distance.
Doctors say the new virus is transmitted person to person and spread as easily as the common cold.
From the existing data and numbers, the trend is similar all over Indonesia. The number of cases is increasing every day. Therefore, it's important that the people are aware and obey the rules of not leaving their houses, maintaining social distance, and taking care of cleanliness.
In Jakarta, a shanty town outside a giant apartment complex reflects the striking divide between those who can easily practice social distancing and others who find it difficult.
Because the house is narrow, it is very difficult for the government to implement something like that here. How can we keep our distance at home with a size of 2 by 3 meters?
Despite all the efforts from the governments to do more to fight COVID-19, places where people live packed tightly together provide the perfect conditions for a pandemic to become worse. Sena Sailan, TRT World.
Time now for a look at what's happening in the world of business. Now, European markets are in the red after EU leaders failed to agree on a long-term plan to cushion the economic blow from the coronavirus pandemic. Leaders including German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte held their fourth video conference on the crisis. Hard-hit southern countries such as Italy and Spain, well, they're pushing for grants to fund the recovery. Wealthier northern nations like the Netherlands and Austria are insisting on loans. Meanwhile, in the US, House lawmakers there have signed off on an almost $500 billion worth of additional stimulus measures to help small businesses and hospitals. For more on this now, let's go to Neil Wilson, Chief Market Analyst at the trading firm Markets.com, live for us there in London. Good to see you. So here we go again. The EU leaders, they failed to agree on a comprehensive recovery plan on the coronavirus. How surprising is this, and how are investors feeling about this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a massive surprise in as much as we're sort of used to the EU sort of just always kicking the can down the road and never quite being able to agree on things. It's a mild disappointment. I think you see the markets off a bit today. There is a semblance of sort of unity where they are talking up a sort of €1 trillion package of aid. I think it does come down to this question: does the sort of richer north actually bail out the sort of more heavily hit south, or do they insist on making it loans? It's probably a key moment for the EU. I think if they're not able to really gather together and really agree on this, then you will start to see friction and fractures sort of open up. And I think it's going to be tough because this is changing the economy so drastically that people will wonder quite what the EU is for if it cannot support countries that have been hit hard in their time of need. So it's a really important moment, and I think probably investors at the moment are watching this very, very closely, because it does have sort of implications for the growth of these countries, but also for the euro as well.
And yet, Neil, it's a completely different story over in the US, with the total amount of aid approved by lawmakers now approaching $3 trillion. How are investors feeling about that? What a disparity on both sides of the pond.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually the US, for all it's been a very partisan sort of political space for many years, they have come together pretty well on this, and they are agreeing on the measures. I think that's a positive for the market and for the economy there. Obviously, they've been very hard hit by the coronavirus, but it does seem that they are able to sort of coordinate their fiscal response from the government and the Treasury with the central bank, the Fed, which so far the EU's not really been able to do. The ECB's come out really hard and opened up as much as it possibly can to help. And now it's up to the nation states of Europe to step up, and they're not quite able to do that on the same level. And that's the nature of the EU, that we've got different member states and they don't have a fiscal union. So it sort of lays bare some of the cracks in the EU and the sort of the inherent problems with the EU versus, say, the US or even here in the UK.
It's fascinating. Neil Wilson from Markets.com in London, thank you so much for speaking to us on TRT World. Now to other stories from around the world this hour. Nestlé, it's reported its best quarterly sales growth in nearly 5 years as shoppers flock to supermarkets to stockpile coffee and frozen meals ahead of the coronavirus lockdowns. The world's largest food company posted organic sales growth of 4.3% in the first quarter, compared with 3.4% a year earlier. Shares in Nestlé rose around 4% on the news. Virgin Australia says an initial review has found it owes $4.4 billion to more than 10,000 creditors. Australia's second largest airline is now seeking a 3-month payment waiver on aircraft leases after failing to secure government help. Earlier this year, the carrier called in administrators after it cancelled all flights following widespread travel bans. And shares in Gilead have fallen around 5% following a report suggesting its experimental COVID-19 treatment isn't effective, as we've been reporting. According to draft documents accidentally published by the World Health Organization, remdesivir failed to improve patients' health in its first clinical trial. But the drug maker said the results were inconclusive because the study was terminated too early. And that is all your business news for now. Now, still to come here on TRT World, as a very different Ramadan begins. We'll have more with our health correspondent about the important health advice the world's Muslims are being urged to follow right now. And
hi, I'm Samantha Johnson, coming to you from my very own lovely little home here in Istanbul. And coming up, we have all the latest from the world of sports, including just who is this new Tiger King in the NFL. Stay with us.
Nenda sikia mtu anazunguka nyuma.
Nimeona ule mtu anavala tena.
Anza kunikamata, anza kunibaka, kwanza kunikamata kukinguvu.
From the Congo to Colombia to Bosnia, prosecutors seek justice against those who use rape as a tool of war.
Parce que lorsqu'on viole une femme, c'est toute la famille qui est violée en fait. Elle n'est pas la seule.
To je praktično soba u kojoj se to desilo. Čak se toliko išlo da je to ništa, to je bila neka kolateralna šteta rata što se desilo, što su žene silovane. Jednostavno znači da mi svojom praksom, svojim presudom pokazujemo da su takvo ponašanja nedopustiva, ne samo što se tiče nas, nego znači u cijelom svijetu.
Storyteller, The Prosecutors, on TRT World.
Like the common cold, COVID-19 spreads through droplets coughed, sneezed, or inhaled by an infected person. The virus can remain on plastic and steel for up to 3 days, on cardboard 1 day. It can last up to 3 hours in the air, but does not pose a risk to most people practicing social distancing.
Our world is rapidly changing. The traditional influence of big powers is being challenged by new emerging forces. With a superpower in decline and other nations on the rise, we examine the world's shifting dynamics and rethink the established world order. From America's centers of power, we take a critical look at foreign policy decisions made here in Washington and explore their impact in a world that is bigger than five.
Bigger Than Five, with Gida Fakhri on TRT World.
Now, welcome back. More than 150,000 infections have been confirmed in the Middle East. As in the rest of the world, governments there are using strict lockdown measures to prevent people from meeting in public places. And the restrictions are particularly crucial to limit the spread of the virus during the month of Ramadan, when Muslims usually attend communal prayers. Because of the pandemic, this holy month will be unlike any in years past. Regan Levine reports.
Breaking the rules of a government lockdown, Lebanese protest against government corruption. There are fears the coronavirus outbreak will exacerbate the country's financial crisis.
The state has left us with two choices. We either die from hunger or from the disease. So since it's death either way, let's die at least while taking a stand.
In Iran, there are similar fears. With more than 5,000 deaths, it's the hardest hit country in the Middle East. But the government's avoided implementing a total lockdown.
I'm often face to face with the customers and I can feel their breath. God knows if they have the virus, I can contract it and transmit it to other homes and customers.
In Egypt, many fear the virus will cast a shadow on what's normally the most festive time of the year for Muslims. The government suspended communal Ramadan activities, including mass charity iftars around mosques. But that didn't stop hundreds of people from participating in a Stay Safe marathon.
Charity funds, raising charity funds, that's one reason we did this. The second is that it's very good during this time to stay motivated and stay more active and stay positive.
Saudi Arabia's Mecca Grand Mosque will be closed to the general public during Ramadan. For the first time in Islam's 1400-year history, prayers inside are limited to mosque clerics, security personnel and cleaners. With nearly 15,000 cases, Israel has the region's second highest infection rate. The United Nations has warned that any cooperation between Palestine and Israel on defeating COVID-19 is being undermined by an increase in attacks, by Israeli settlers on the West Bank. The UN has recorded a 78% spike in violence against Palestinians at the hands of settlers since the pandemic first emerged. But it isn't all gloom and doom in the Middle East. Palestinian researchers in the West Bank have created a ventilator model that could treat coronavirus patients.
The equipment that used in this machine are in the local market. And the most important thing, our machine is fully computerized.
The team hopes production on the devices will begin once approved by the Health Ministry. Regan Levine, TRT World.
Now, as Ramadan begins, are there any healthy precautions that go along with it? Joining me now is TRT World Health correspondent Nicola Hill, live from London. Great to see you, Nicola. So how can Muslims stay healthy during Ramadan under lockdown?
Well, the advice from the World Health Authority for Muslims is actually very similar in the wider sense as it is for everybody else, which is to keep social distancing and to ensure that they physically don't hug people. Instead, use the culturally sensitive greetings such as hands on the heart, waving, or simply nodding to people. The main concern of people at the moment is what happens during the period of fasting between sunrise and sunset. I was speaking to Dr. Tamzil Awan, who is a Muslim primary care physician here in the UK, and he's urging his patients and fellow Muslims to adapt a very low threshold for breaking the fast this year. He said that in the past he's had 75-year-old patients who maybe have diabetes and they insist on fasting from sunrise to sunset. But he says that shouldn't happen this year. The high-risk patients, those who have diabetes, who have COPD, who have asthma, who have high blood pressure, and who have other respiratory illnesses, are those who are really at risk of having severe COVID-19 and even dying from the disease. So he's saying that this year they should think very carefully and they should break the fast if necessary. This is being supported by the Muslim Council of Britain, who's saying the same thing. And also they're giving advice to those frontline healthcare workers, the ones who are in the full PPE and wearing those masks, which we have been hearing are very dehydrating, they're very hot. Now, the Muslim Council of Britain and doctors like Dr. Awan are saying that in these instances, these very different circumstances from other Ramadans, it's okay for these health workers to break their fast to ensure that they are not putting themselves at greater risk or possibly making clerical errors when dealing with patients. And we've also got immunologists saying that when people do eat, when they do eat between sunset and sunrise, to make sure that they're eating very healthily, to make sure that they're having the necessary macronutrients, these are our carbohydrates, fats and proteins, and the micronutrients, the vitamins and the minerals, so that that can sustain them during the day when they are fasting. Because the main thing is that you want to keep an energy balance in the body, I've been told, to support the immune system and to potentially fight off any infection.
And Nicola, what about mental health?
That's obviously something that we're all definitely dealing with at the moment, is how to stay mentally and emotionally strong, and particularly at a time when you ordinarily during Ramadan would be getting together with family, you would be having community meals, community prayers. Now, this is something that both the WHO, the Muslim Council, and, as I said to Dr. Awan I was speaking to this morning, say that if people can still join in virtually, a lot of prayers are being streamed, if they can have communal get-togethers. One of the suggestions that Dr. Awan is giving to his patients is for them to have dinner together via systems such as we're communicating with here, via the Zoom, the Skype, or any virtual platform that's possible. If people can still sit together, that actually will make them feel better because they're still connecting, there's still that community spirit. and also to continue to exercise, but to be cautious about this because they don't want to exercise to an extent that they start sweating and become dehydrated during the day. And this hydration is so important because you need to have this hydration in the mucus of the mouth and the nose to prevent the infection, because this works in a way of preventing infection coming in. So, of course, exercise makes us feel good. If they're able to virtually connect with people, that can improve that feeling of being part of a community, which is so important for Muslims during Ramadan.
That's such a beautiful idea to have a meal through Zoom. Nicola Hale, thank you so much for all that great information. All right, let's go to the world of sports. And Samantha Johnson is at her home here in Istanbul.
Hi and welcome to your daily sports bulletin with me, Samantha Johnson, coming to you from my very own lovely little home here in Istanbul. Okay, we're going to start with NFL, and there's a new Tiger King in town. Now, last night we saw the very first virtual NFL draft, and there were no surprises about the #1 pick. The Cincinnati Bengals chose Louisiana State University's Joe Burrow, the star quarterback who led the Tigers to a national championship in January. The 23-year-old Heisman Trophy winner set an NCAA record with 60 touchdown passes in 15 starts and was the consensus top choice. But he has his work cut out for him. The Bengals had a league-worst 2-14 season, but Burrow's high school coach thinks he's up to the challenge.
When Joe was a 15-year-old sophomore, you just knew that he was different, different than anyone I had ever coached. And his preparation, even as a young kid, his leadership is just different than anything I've ever seen. And, not to mention he's incredibly talented also.
Now, UEFA may have softened its tone about leagues cancelling the 2019-2020 season, but they still want clubs to qualify for the top European competitions on merit. UEFA confirmed national leagues will not be banned from European competition if they cancel their seasons, but that's only in 2 cases. The first would involve being instructed to do so by a government, and the second is the case of unsurmountable economic problems. In any scenario, UEFA urges the clubs to explore all possible options to finish seasons and use a different format if needed. The Liverpool City Region Mayor has called for an investigation into the Champions League matchup between Liverpool and Atletico Madrid to determine if it contributed to the spread of the coronavirus in the city. 52,000 supporters attended the match at Anfield, including 3,000 travelling fans from the Spanish capital on March the 11th. Days later, Spain was forced into a nationwide lockdown, and this particular fixture happened to be the last major football game to be played in England, with the season suspended 2 days later. Now, football may have been halted around the world, but the Bundesliga is ready to return on the 9th of May. Now, the Germans plan to play matches behind closed doors as organisers await the government to give them the green light to resume football in the country.
Einige Aussagen und viele Spekulationen.
For us, the only thing that remains decisive is what the political leaders decide. And that is why it's not up to us to set the starting date for the Bundesliga. I already said last time that if day X comes, we will be ready. And if the federal state prime minister and the federal government will decide this day would be May 9th, then we will be ready on May 9th.
It's a straight shootout between Qatar and Saudi Arabia for the hosting rights for the 2030 Asian Games. They're the only 2 bidders for the continental showpiece, and relations between the 2 Gulf nations have been strained as the 3-year-long blockade of Doha continues. Qatar have hosted the Asian Games before, that was back in 2006, while Saudi are still waiting for their first chance to stage the event. The Olympic Council of Asia will announce the winning bid when they meet in China on the 29th of November. And that's your sport for now. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.
More than 6 weeks have passed by since the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus outbreak a pandemic. And since then, working from home has become the new normal, including for many of my fantastic colleagues here at TRT World. Now, we have 4 of our correspondents, or 3, covering 3 continents, standing by to share how they are bringing us here at TRT World the latest news from their homes. Hello to you, Francis Collins in Istanbul, Aisha Adudo in London, and Sally Ayhan in Washington with her son. And we'll be hearing from them soon. But first, let's go to Francis Collins here in Istanbul. Francis, now you are normally on the road, a roving correspondent reporter. How is this any different, if at all?
To be honest, I'm in the best position really when it comes to it because, yes, myself and other colleagues, we tend to travel a lot. We're used to setting up kit in very odd locations, sometimes nice locations, sometimes not. I've, done stuff and edited material and voiced material from tents on the Syrian border. I was on a leaky trawler heading to the Gaza Strip a couple of years ago. That was quite challenging to do work when there's a very loud engine going on around you. So we're used to fairly extreme conditions. At best for us, it can be a nice hotel room where we can set up all our kit. So to be honest, doing it from home, apart from the boredom factor of always seeing the same walls every day, and it's been 6 weeks since I've seen you, Maria, that's the only problem really. We tend to have the kit. Most of it is lightweight and portable and very effective, as you can see. We tend to have pictures being sent to us over the internet, and that happens wherever we are. And we can do the job effectively, we hope, from home. But it's not like being in an office or being in a real location.
And tell us, Francis, what kit do you have at home, and how easy or how difficult is it to do your job now?
Well, it's getting easier and easier. I mean, had we been speaking 5, 6, 7 years ago, it would have been a lot harder. I can remember the days when I used to need an expensive satellite truck provided by whichever station I was working for to deliver my material back to the station. Now, of course, it gets sent via my mobile phone, or it gets sent on the internet. But lights are very cheap these days and very lightweight. Cameras are getting cheaper. Telephone cameras like this one are superb. And of course, with the rise of people like bloggers and YouTubers and those who do videos for Instagram, there's a whole industry now of kit and advice that is out there that is very, very affordable, that makes things look very good, no matter whether you're doing it for a TV station like ours or you're just doing your own video for YouTube. Kit is cheap, it's expensive, it's very effective, and of course, as speeds get better with years to come with 5G, it's going to get cheaper, faster and easier to work remotely.
Fantastic. Francis Collins, thank you very much indeed for that. And I do miss you here in the newsroom. And take a look, we are joined by Natasha Hussain now in Kuala Lumpur. We'll come to her very soon. And now let's go to London and speak to my dear colleague Aisha, who is our presenter in London for TRT World. I'm sure you've seen her very often. Now, Aisha, what a challenge. You are a mother, you have a 6-year-old daughter. How are you juggling homeschooling, doing your work, because you also present a show, and doing your own makeup and all the other challenges we know go with getting ready?
Well, Maria, I'm on day 46, actually. Many might know I do have an illness which puts me in the vulnerable group. So I'm actually at home in self-isolation for 12 weeks, and I'm in week 5, end of week 5. And I can't go out at all, not even for groceries or anything else. So literally stuck inside with my 6-year-old daughter and my husband here. How does it work? Basically, she's on day 36. Of course, it's not easy. She's 6 years old and she's missing school immensely, missing her friends, because at this age they actually love school. It's not like they want to stay home. And we don't have much online education, so basically you do have to sit down and be a teacher. So I've come up kind of with a schedule where 9 till 12 I'm a teacher, try to be one, and 12 till 4 I'm a journalist, and 4 till 10 I would say mum, cook, housewife, whatever you might call it. And after that it's time on Netflix and Amazon Prime. That's how a day for me looks like. We of course have our bad days and good days, so does she, so I am quite flexible with that, and I give her the homework that she wants. It's not like, yes, study English and Spanish today, or however she feels about it. Well, putting on my makeup and getting ready for the program, that's actually what she's loving. She likes to sit there with me, watch. She knows now the difference between an eyeliner and an eyeshadow. And she usually, when I'm on live, she watches it from the next room. And I think it's giving her more of a sense of understanding what is happening out there, listening to our conversations. So that's been quite helpful, I can say. Of course, it's not easy. And I'm lucky in the sense of the government has sent my details to the supermarket, so I'm getting my groceries delivered because I'm in the risk category, so I don't have to go out at all. But yes, we are doing a program, Corona Diaries, every week from home in self-isolation. Technically, it's taking time. We are overcoming the challenges there, but basically asking people's questions to the experts, our viewers' questions, and it's giving me as well answers. So it's about health, about psychology, about food and eating, and today it will be about actually religion and faith in self-isolation tonight. So, well, trying to juggle it all together and just stay positive.
Absolutely, stay positive. Aisha, and what is the one thing that you miss the most? Could it be, I know that I would miss this, the buzz of a newsroom?
Of course, I do, and you do know that. I mean, I was traveling quite a lot and presenting also from Istanbul, from London, and I miss that buzz. I miss basically having a conversation with someone face to face and interacting and being on the go, because I am quite an active person. So it is very challenging mentally to have to stay put in one place.
Aisha, it's been fantastic to speak to you like this, and do stay very strong, and hello to your daughter, and you are very brave. Your condition is very challenging, and do tune in to Aisha's program tonight. All right, let's continue. Let's go to Washington now, and we have Sally Ayhan with a very special guest. Hello, Sally. Introduce us to your son.
Yeah, this is Yori. He's 7 years old. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, hello, hello. So he's been waiting patiently. He's been great. So what are the challenges that you face, Sally? We speak to you. I know I speak to you nearly every day. Have you had any near on-air disasters?
Slightly, yes. I mean, in the very beginning, when I started reporting live from home, I started doing them outside because I was quite concerned about having the kids come in on my live shot. We have a pretty big place, but we've got limited private space. So we have 3 private rooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom for the boys, 1 bedroom for my partner and I, and then we have this playroom. And this is where we have, you know, all their toys and one of the TVs as well. So it was pretty much either doing it outside or doing it in the playroom. And I tried actually keeping them up in the playroom and doing the live shots from down in the living room, where it's a little bit more perhaps picturesque. But I couldn't really keep them trapped upstairs in the playroom for more than 2 hours. I felt that was a little bit cruel. So I decided to kick them out of the playroom and then do the lives from here. But of course, you know, for Yori, when he wakes up, when he wakes up at 6 o'clock with me, he's usually watching TV in the playroom, so I have to kick him out. What do you think about that, when I have to kick you out of the playroom?
I don't know.
Is it annoying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can't.
But we have had a near miss where my 2.5-year-old came screaming up the stairwell and was banging on the door halfway through a live shot. I'm not sure if you remember that one, but I found it very distracting indeed.
I don't remember that at all. We didn't see it. Sally, and what is the one thing that you miss the most? Because sometimes you're outside the most fascinating locations in Washington, Capitol Hill, and reporting on US News. What do you miss the most?
I think I really miss the storytelling, the access to real stories, and telling the stories of people, the human interest stories of people most affected by the news. That's why I was drawn to journalism in the first place. So being stuck at home, just reporting on the news from an iPad or a camera inside a room, I find quite difficult and quite limiting. But what I've done though, is find characters online and approach people to try and do stories and human interest stories via Skype, and recorded those interviews and tried to still make some human interest pieces out of that, which has been really interesting. But I really do miss that sort of adventurous take on journalism and interviewing people that are actually affected by the major issues of the world, and especially in the US where there are so many interesting issues. But we're certainly getting by, and finding a way to sort of get creative with things. It's amazing what you can come up with when you're forced to.
Fantastic, and your reporting is always absolutely excellent. Yowie, can you say a quick bye-bye to our viewers? We want to hear from you too. Bye-bye.
Yowie, you want to say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to our viewers on TRT World. Sally, you've been fantastic. Both of you, take care. All right, we continue and we go to a dear colleague that is normally here with us in Istanbul, Natasha Hussain, who's now in Kuala Lumpur. Tell us your story, because you were supposed to travel back here to Istanbul, I think on the day or the day before when Kuala Lumpur, when the borders were closed, the flights were closed. Tell us.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was supposed to fly out of Malaysia, and the day before I was supposed to fly out, the Prime Minister gave this major nationwide address, and there was a lot of anticipation. In the days before that, there was a lot of panic buying across the country because people were anticipating that the Prime Minister would announce a lockdown, and he did. So it's definitely been a very, very surreal since then. I never thought anything like this would happen in my country. The last time a curfew and movement restrictions were put in place here, it was in the 1960s when a communist insurgency was happening here, and also when there were racial riots in 1969. So again, it's really, really surreal. I came back here for a holiday for 2 weeks, and now I'm stuck. If at any other point in time, I'd be more than happy to have extra time in my home country. But it feels a bit different when you're stuck in the country and stuck at home 24/7. Malaysia actually closed its borders on March 18th, and a few weeks after that, Turkey closed its borders too. So there really is no chance for me to come back to Istanbul at this moment.
Just know one thing, Natasha, that we miss you very much, all of us here in the newsroom. Tell us, what are the challenges of working from home?
Well, one of the main challenges I've had to deal with here are, quite honestly, technological limitations. As I said earlier, I came back on holiday, so I really don't have access to any of the equipment that I usually have access to in the office. I don't even have my office laptop with me, which can handle doing heavier stuff like video editing. My setup here is actually pretty haphazard. It's set up in my spare room with whatever I could really cobble together, and I can't really go outside and buy mics or extra lights because most shops here are closed, and there have also been disruptions to the postal services here. So ordering stuff online will take a while too, and even more so if it were to come from abroad. With that said, I think I appreciate now more than ever being able to physically go into an office and be around people. It feels really strange to be locked up at home 24/7 and working from home and without any proper face-to-face interaction with colleagues or people.
And it's also strange, I must say, for me not to have such a busy newsroom and not to see you guys here too. Natasha, thank you so much. Stay safe. And again, we miss you. All right, that is it. And you've heard there from all my four colleagues. It's a bit emotional. I do miss them all. And with that, we come to the end of this news hour. We've talked a lot about working from home. Now, don't forget, you can visit our website for details on all our main stories, trtworld.com. Happy Ramadan.